Hey friends, Dean here. Before we get you on to your episode, I want to take a moment to invite you to our next virtual online trivia night. Wednesday, May 13th at 8 p.m. Join us either on our Facebook group or on our YouTube page for 3 rounds of fun trivia, music questions, movie questions, general knowledge questions. It'll be a fun time and a chance to win some prizes and have just a good relaxing night of some trivia at home. You don't even have to go out for it. So don't forget, Wednesday, March 13th at 8 p.m. Join us on our Facebook group or YouTube for 3 rounds of fun virtual online trivia. We'll see you there.
It's not easy to fire someone, especially if they're the lead singer in your band. In this quick hit, we're taking a look at the replacements. Stay with us.
You're listening to a 3324 podcast quick hit with Dean Legiro, where Dean shares stories and trivia about his favorite chart hits, actors, movies, and more.
Welcome, friends, to this week's 3324 podcast quick hit. My name is Dean Legiro. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. You can find us on social media. We're at Instagram and Facebook at 3324 podcast. We have also launched a new Facebook group, so check us out there. We've got polls, a lot of great information. You can interact with us as well, and you can find out about our live shows that we do on YouTube and Facebook. So, the lead singer in a band. Most times, they are not only the literal voice of the group, but their image and stage presence is often the centerpiece of any successful band. Having that stability allows a band to create a body of work with a recognizable sound. And there are many reasons for replacing members of a group. Some born out of tragedy, some due to internal band drama, and in this list, we've got a bit of everything. So let's get to it. Don't Stop Believing, Lights, and Separate Ways are just a few hits that feature vocalist Steve Perry. But the Journey frontman was not the first or even the second vocalist in the band, but his powerhouse vocals are what have cemented this group's place in music history. Formed in 1973 with members from Santana and a few other groups, Journey's original lead vocalist was keyboardist Greg Rowley, who had handled vocals on the Santana hits Evil Ways and Black Magic Woman, but they could not score any chart success as Journey. A lead vocalist was added to the mix, but after the group heard a tape with the then unknown Steve Perry, he was brought out on the tour under the guise of being a cousin of one of the roadies. Getting the chance to perform a song with the band during a sound check while the lead singer was away from the stage, the group was informed by their manager that Steve Perry would be their new lead singer. And the rest, as they say, is history. Sometimes tragedy strikes and a band is forced to assess their next move. Soldier on with a new singer, or fold up and go home? For AC/DC, their decision to keep going brought them a whole new level of success, and one of the biggest selling albums of the 80s. Also formed in 1973 like Journey, this Australian import featured lead singer Bon Scott's grungy vocal style. Partner that with Angus Young's schoolboy outfits and crunchy guitar licks, and AC/DC was poised for success. With hits like Highway to Hell, TNT, and Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap, AC/DC was the hard rock answer to the blossoming punk scene of the era. As they made preparations to record their 7th album, Bon Scott unexpectedly died as a result of acute alcohol poisoning after a night of extreme partying in London. The band considered calling it quits right there, but Bon Scott's parents insisted that their son would have wanted them to carry on, so a replacement was sought. Brian Johnson had been in a UK band called Geordie, which Bon Scott had actually seen perform live, and he had commented what a great performance the lead singer gave, giving it his all, singing 1 second and then rolling around on the stage screaming. What Bon Scott didn't know is that the reason for Brian Johnson's howling and rolling around on the stage was because right after that show, Brian Johnson would be diagnosed with appendicitis, and that was the reason for his pained performance. Brian Johnson got the job, and AC/DC's first album with their new lead singer would be the epic Back in Black, which would be the second highest selling album of the 80s, selling upwards of 25 million copies and counting. Up next, 2 more bands that replaced their lead singer and saw even greater success. One group didn't have to look far for their next leader. He was already in the band. We'll be right back. Usually when a band replaces a singer, they're trying to find somebody that is a relatively close match to the vocal style of the one that came before. This way they can be able to sing songs from the back catalog, as well as be able to move forward with new material. In the case of Van Halen, the replacement of David Lee Roth with Sammy Hagar ushered in a whole new era for the band and even more success. Hot off the heels of their breakthrough album 1984, artistic tensions within the band came to a head, and in August of 1985, the mighty Van Halen lost its charismatic and acrobatic lead singer. The search for a new lead singer ensued, and Patti Smythe from the group Scandal, you know them from their 80s hit Goodbye to You, was the first to be asked to take over lead vocals. She declined, and in one of those strange rock history moments, Eddie Van Halen's Ferrari mechanic suggested that Eddie reach out to fellow Ferrari customer Sammy Hagar. Eddie took his advice, and Van Halen Mark II, or Van Hagar as they were nicknamed, was born. Released in November of 1985, their first group effort, entitled 5150, would hit number 1 on the Billboard charts and sell over 6 million copies. Sammy Hagar would stay with Van Halen until 1996, when those same artistic tensions reared their ugly head again, and Sammy Hagar would be out. Thinking they could easily replicate the same recipe, they would recruit former Extreme lead singer Gary Cherone for their next full-length album. But this incarnation would not see the success of the two previous lineups, and Gary Cherone would exit in 1999. Finally, we have the story of a band that, in the effort to find a new lead singer, placed an ad that would receive close to 400 replies. In the end, they decided that their drummer would be the best choice, and the rest is history. Formed in 1967, Genesis were the darlings of progressive rock. Ambitious lyrics, virtuoso playing courtesy of Steve Hackett on guitar and Tony Banks on keyboards, supported with lead vocals by Peter Gabriel, who really took cosplay to a whole new level. Genesis was the ultimate combination of sight and sound. Their sixth and most acclaimed album, 1974's The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, would be Peter Gabriel's last. Having grown tired of the music industry and wanting to spend more time with his family, Gabriel would exit Genesis in 1975. We would, however, catch up with Peter Gabriel in the 80s when he released his smash album So, with the hits Sledgehammer and Big Time. Left without a singer, drummer Phil Collins suggested that Genesis should carry on, but as an instrumental group. That idea was quickly squashed, and in 1975, the group began recording tracks for an album that had no lead singer at the time. As the auditions from the respondents in the aforementioned newspaper ad progressed, Collins would teach the vocal parts to the applicants, and after much trial and error, it was eventually determined that the answer Genesis was looking for was already sitting behind the drum set. Phil Collins would become the new lead singer of Genesis and would lead the group into superstardom, and in the 80s would launch his own massively successful solo career as well. This has been Dean with your 3324 Quick Hit.
This has been a 3324 Podcast Quick Hit. You can find us on your favorite podcast provider, so please like, subscribe, and rate to become a part of the 3324 family. Your feedback is important, so please make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at 3324 Podcast and on Twitter at 3324P to join the conversation.